Within the span of just 2 days, American entertainment lost two familiar names to suicide, and the back-to-back nature of the losses sent a visible wave of grief through the public. On Sunday, February 22, 2026, the family of actor Robert Carradine announced his death at the age of 71. Then, less than 24 hours later, the representative for comedian and actor Martin Short confirmed that his 42-year-old daughter, Katherine Hartley Short, had been found dead at her Hollywood Hills home on the evening of Monday, February 23rd. The Los Angeles Fire Department responded to the residence at approximately 6:41 in the evening, and the Los Angeles coroner confirmed that Katherine died by suicide. Two families, two statements of grief, two losses within a single news cycle. So, who were these two people, and what does it mean that their deaths arrived together in a moment that stopped so many in their tracks? Robert Carradine was not a household name in the way his father John or his half-brother David were, but he had a long and recognizable career in American film and television that stretched across several decades. He was perhaps best known for his role as Louis Skolnick in the 1984 comedy Revenge of the Nerds, a film that landed squarely in the cultural memory of anyone who came of age in that era. His family released a statement that read, in part, "In a world that can feel so dark, Bobby was always a beacon of light to everyone around him." They added that they hoped his story could encourage a broader conversation about mental illness and the stigma that too often surrounds it. That sentiment about light and stigma and a silence that costs lives would appear again almost word for word in the statement released the very next day about Katherine Short. The parallel was not lost on anyone paying attention. But before examining what those two statements share, it is worth understanding who Katherine Short was on her own terms. Katherine was the eldest of three children adopted by Martin Short and his wife, actress Nancy Dolman. She earned a bachelor's degree in psychology and gender sexuality studies from New York University in 2006 and went on to complete a master's in social work from the University of Southern California in 2010. Those credentials placed her firmly in the mental health field, and she built her professional life there with clear intention. She maintained a private practice as a licensed clinical social worker in Los Angeles and also worked part-time at Amay Health, a psychiatry-led outpatient clinic where she focused on community outreach, family support groups, peer support, and psychotherapy. She was 42 years old, educated, professionally accomplished, and by all visible measures, deeply committed to the field she had chosen. What makes her loss all the more layered is the nature of the work she had chosen to do beyond her clinical practice. Katherine was also involved with Bring Change to Mind, a nonprofit organization whose stated mission is to end the stigma and discrimination surrounding mental illness by empowering young people to build open, supportive communities where conversations about mental health are welcomed rather than avoided. That mission statement reads almost like a personal declaration from someone who understood, from the inside, how dangerous silence can be. She worked alongside that cause not as a celebrity-adjacent volunteer, but as a credentialed professional who had spent years sitting with other people's pain. And yet, as those who work in mental health know all too well, the profession offers no immunity from personal struggle. The people most equipped to recognize suffering in others are not always the ones best positioned to ask for help themselves. That is not a contradiction unique to Katherine Short. It is a well-documented pattern in the mental health field. What kind of family history had shaped the person Katherine became? Her mother, Nancy Dolman, died of ovarian cancer in 2010 at the age of 58. Katherine was in her mid-20s at the time, completing her graduate degree at USC in the same year she lost her mother. Martin Short has spoken publicly about that loss with measured honesty over the years. In a 2014 interview conducted at his Pacific Palisades home, the Los Angeles Times told him, "After my wife died, I realized we all go through this, and we wake up the next day whether we think the world should stop or not. It doesn't." That same year, he published his memoir, dedicated to his three children. Katherine, Henry, and Oliver grew up in a household shaped by comedy and warmth, but also by real grief, and the loss of Nancy Dolman in 2010 was a turning point for all of them. Now, 16 years after that loss, Martin Short and his two surviving sons face a grief of an entirely different magnitude. How did the public respond when news of both deaths spread? The reaction on social media was swift and genuine. One user wrote, "First Robert Carradine and now Katherine Short, a reminder to check on the people around you and ask them if they are okay. It could save a life. I cannot imagine what Martin must be feeling." Another simply said, "Robert Carradine and Martin Short's daughter, Katherine. What a horribly sad day." Those responses reflect something beyond celebrity mourning. They reflect the kind of collective unease that surfaces when loss arrives in clusters, when two separate tragedies land within hours of each other and force a moment of wider reflection. Carradine was 71, Katherine Short was 42. They did not know each other, their deaths share no direct connection, and yet together they created a moment that many people found impossible to simply scroll past. What is it about the timing and the circumstances that made this particular 48 hours feel so heavy? Part of the answer lies in the statements themselves. Both families used language centered on light. Carradine's family called him a beacon of light. The Short family said Katherine will be remembered for the light and joy she brought into the world. Both families explicitly mentioned mental health stigma or asked that the losses lead to greater openness around mental illness. That is not coincidence. That is two families, in their most private moments of devastation, choosing to use their grief as a public statement. It takes a particular kind of intention to do that, and both families did it within a day of each other. Whether that parallel was noticed by the people writing those words or not, the effect on those reading them was cumulative. Martin Short is currently on a comedy tour with his longtime friend and Only Murders in the Building co-star Steve Martin. Their next scheduled performance is this Friday in Milwaukee. No announcement had been made at the time of this report regarding any changes to the tour schedule. Short is also nominated this Sunday for an Acting Award for his role in Only Murders in the Building, a show that has brought him renewed visibility and critical recognition in recent years. None of that context makes Monday's news easier to process. If anything, the contrast between a life that looked full and forward-moving from the outside and the reality of what was happening within the family speaks directly to the point that both grieving families were trying to make in their public statements. Katherine Short spent her adult life working to reduce the distance between people and the help they need. She did that work in clinical offices, in community settings, and through nonprofit advocacy. She understood the landscape of mental health struggle not as an abstraction, but as the daily terrain of her profession. Her loss does not diminish that work. It makes the argument for it more urgent. The same is true of Robert Carradine, who at 71 had lived a full public life and was still, according to his family, a source of light for the people around him. Both losses are a reminder that suffering is not always visible, that expertise does not equal immunity, and that the conversation these two families are asking the public to have is one worth having directly and without delay. If you or someone you know is struggling, the NYE 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available around the clock by calling or texting NYE 988 or by visiting NYE988lifeline.org.